One cool upgrade turns a 2-hour job into 10 minutes. Every task you have been dreading is cleared in a single afternoon without wrecking your back. That feeling is what these tools give you. We pulled 30 off Amazon that most people never see, and each one outdoes the last. Let's count them down. 6 inches of chain, 1 hand, and enough bite to drop a branch in roughly 3 seconds. Seesii's cordless mini chainsaw is small enough to hold like a large drill, so pruning becomes a one-handed job. Press the trigger and it's already cutting, while a full-size saw would still be waiting on the ground to be started. Batteries swap out so work doesn't stall halfway through a hedge. It slices firewood, clears storm damage, and tidies limbs that loppers can't manage. It's the tool you reach for, expecting to be disappointed, and never are. Once a year, mower blades need sharpening, which means jacking up something never designed to be lifted, then lying underneath and hoping the blocks hold. MoJack removes the gamble entirely. Roll the mower on, crank the lift by hand or with a cordless drill, and 750 pounds rises smoothly to working height. Track width adjusts from 31 to 62 inches, covering essentially every riding mower sold. ATVs work too, and it folds flat against the wall afterwards. Maintenance you'd been avoiding becomes maintenance you actually do. Ask any workshop what their most used tool is, and plenty of them will point at something the size of a torch. Dremel's 4-200 spins at very high speed rather than turning with torque, and that single difference lets it carve, engrave, grind, sharpen, polish, sand, and cut through wood, metal, glass, stone, and tile. The keyless collet swaps bits with a twist instead of a wrench hunt. Variable speed means delicate glass etching and aggressive rust removal come out of the same body. Every attachment turns it into a different machine, which is why it never quite makes it back into the drawer. Deck building is measured in knees, not hours, hundreds of screws, every one driven from a crouch. CAMO drive deletes the crouch. Standing upright, you place the tool, pull the trigger on the driver already in your hand, and it fastens through the board edge so no screw head shows on the surface at all. 3 quick change guides cover edge, clip, and face fastening across composite, PVC, wood, and hardwood, and the handle reverses for either hand. Hidden fasteners, real speed, and a back that still works tomorrow. Measuring errors rarely come from the tape. They come from squinting at a mark that sits slightly off. Woodpeckers built this pocket rule to delete that guesswork. Etched scales begin right at the edge, and tiny drilled holes let a pencil tip drop in and scribe a line that's exactly where you meant it. Slots along the body handle depth checks and height setups. 6 inches of stainless steel that quietly ends measuring arguments. Halfway through finishing a staircase, you reach the spindles, and every gap turns out to be narrower than your sanding block. That's where the MicroZip earns its place. Sandpaper stretched over a body thinner than a pencil, reaching carved detail a block will never touch. Strips swap on and off in seconds, and the kit's grits take one handle from rough to polished. Suddenly, the fiddly parts look as good as the easy ones. Wiring a run usually demands 3 separate tools, and you're juggling all of them at the top of a ladder. Jokari's Quadro folds 4 of those jobs into one pair of pliers: round cable, flat cable, clean wire cutting, and proper gripping jaws, all in a hand-sized body. Electricians reach for it because switching tasks costs nothing. Fewer tools in the pouch, and an afternoon of wiring moves faster than it has any right to. Tired of builds that come out solid but somehow still look homemade? The giveaway is almost always the edges. Saker's chamfer plane fixes that in one pass, peeling a clean 45-degree bevel off any edge and leaving a curled shaving behind it. Adjust the depth and you control how much comes off. That bevel lands right the first time, so nothing gets sanded afterwards. 2 minutes per edge, and nobody guesses it was homemade. Ever misread the 16ths and cut a board an eighth short? Digital tape measures exist for that reason. The E-Tape PN6 puts every measurement on a clear LCD screen, fractions, decimals, or metric, whichever you think in, so nobody's squinting at tiny lines. It stores readings and adds measurements together, killing the mental arithmetic on a ladder. The printed tape is still there underneath. Same tape you already know how to use, minus the one moment where it lies to you. The next few look ordinary until you see what they actually do, and then one of them stops being ordinary very quickly. Small enough to disappear inside a closed fist, this little plane looks almost decorative, right up until the first shaving curls off it. Jorgensen's number W01 is a proper block plane in miniature, with an adjustable blade and flat sole that trims edges, eases corners, and rescues doors sticking by a hair. Sandpaper would take 10 minutes and round the edge over. 2 passes leave it flat, crisp, and glass smooth, the kind of edge you run your thumb along twice. Round stock defeats even steady hands because the bit skates off the curb before it can bite. Big Gator solves that with pure geometry. A V-groove cradles pipe, dowel, or bar and centers it automatically, while hardened bushings hold the bit dead vertical. Flat stock works too. Every hole lands dead center the first time, without a drill press or a single minute spent building a jig. American-made steel that makes accuracy the default. Most people crank fasteners far tighter than they should, and hardly anyone realizes they're doing it. Fix it. Sticks builds torque, limiting straight into a driver that folds into a T-handle for real leverage. Snap in a limiter set to a specific inch-pound value, and it clicks the moment you hit spec. Bikes, optics, electronics, anything with fasteners you'd rather not strip. Bits store inside the handle, so the kit stays together. Proper torque accuracy that fits in a jacket pocket rather than a toolbox. Sawing a dovetail by hand usually ends with 20 minutes of paring the cut back to the line. SUIZAN's Dozuki mostly removes that step because the blade barely takes any material to begin with. It cuts on the pull stroke, which keeps the steel under tension and lets it be ground paper thin without buckling, while a stiffened spine along the back holds it perfectly rigid. Drawers and frames fit without a gap, and hand-cut joinery stops feeling like a decade-long skill. How many miters have you scrapped because the wall wasn't actually 90 degrees? Almost none of them are. SawSet Pro reads the true angle of any corner, then does the maths for you. The display shows the exact number to dial into your saw, which spares you the halving, the guessing, and test cuts eaten out of good trim. Inside corners, outside corners, strange angles in an old house, all handled. Crown molding and baseboards meet without a gap on the first attempt, which feels almost suspicious. Nothing kills momentum faster than a screw head stripping halfway out, leaving the driver spinning uselessly. Most projects stop right there. This 22-piece extractor set restarts them. Each bit carries reversed flutes, so drilling backwards bites deeper instead of slipping. The harder it turns, the tighter it grips. Rounded bolts, snapped screws, rusted fasteners seized into an engine block, all recoverable. Keep this set in a drawer, and a completely ruined afternoon becomes a 5-minute detour. Fitting drawer fronts usually involves tape, shims, a helper, and a fair amount of swearing before anything lines up. Milescraft's jig removes all of it. Clamp it inside the drawer box, set your reveal, and the front is held in exact position while you drive the screws, even, square, and consistent from one drawer to the next. Handle and knob drilling is built in as well, so hardware lands centered every single time. Kitchen installs drop from an all-day ordeal to a quick afternoon. Every engine rebuild arrives at one dangerous moment. The pistons have to go back in. Rings splay outward, catch the cylinder edge, and snap. 8 compressor pliers in this set cover bores from 73 to 117 millimeters, squeezing the rings flush so the piston slides home clean. Ratcheting bands hold the tension, leaving both hands on the work. Anyone who has snapped a ring at the worst possible moment knows why this box earns its shelf space. Peeling a curl of basswood off with a properly sharp blade is the reason people fall into this hobby and never leave. BeaverCraft's whittling set covers the entry point, a roughing knife for shaping, a detail knife for fine work, and a hooked blade for scooping bowls, all arriving sharp instead of needing an hour of prep. Basswood blanks, a leather strop, and polishing compound keep that edge. Few hobbies give back this much for so little, and it starts the moment the first curl lifts. Go look under your kitchen cabinet right now. Those angled holes were never meant to be seen, and they're the reason the whole thing holds together. Massca's M2 Pro makes that joint close to foolproof. An all-aluminum body clamps to the workpiece, hardened bushings guide the bit at the right angle, and the depth stop adjusts the thickness in seconds. Drill, flip, screw, and the joint is hidden from the front. Face frames and cabinet boxes gain a strength that surprises people who call screws cheating. From here, it stops being about saving time and starts being about tools that shouldn't work at all. Table saws don't forgive a lapse in attention, and thin rip cuts are where hands drift closest to the blade. MicroJig's GRR-RIPPER puts a controlled grip above the cut instead of beside it. Adjustable legs straddle the blade, pressing down and sideways at once so the workpiece can't lift, wander, or kick back. Narrow strips ride out perfectly straight instead of chattering against the fence. Better cuts and 10 fingers at the end of the day rarely arrive in the same package. Sink a finish, nail perfectly flush, then do it 200 more times without a compressor running. Craftsman's cordless brad nailer fires 18-gauge nails on demand off the same battery as the rest of the lineup. Tool-free depth adjustment sets how deep each nail sits, so delicate trim never gets dimpled. Walk in, start nailing, walk out. The hose and tank stay in the truck. Baseboards, picture frames, cabinet backs, a job that used to fill a Saturday now fits in a coffee break. Try trimming door casing flush to the floor with anything that rotates and you'll ruin the boards every time. The fix isn't a better blade or steadier hand, it's a different kind of motion. DeWalt's cordless multi-tool vibrates the blade side to side thousands of times a minute, which is why it cuts hard against surfaces nothing else reaches. That same trick plunges a clean rectangle into drywall and lifts old grout without scarring tile. Blade swap without tools, and variable speed suits metal. One body, a dozen impossible jobs turned routine. 8 feet of plywood is far enough for any freehand cut to drift well off the line. Craig's Rip Cut turns an ordinary circular saw into something far closer to a guided rail system. The saw mounts onto a sled that slides along an aluminum rail, while a shoe rides the panel edge and holds whatever width you set, anywhere up to 24 inches. Set the number once, and each cut afterwards comes out identical, straight enough to glue up immediately. A sentence. Nobody says about freehand work. Turning a handheld router upside down and mounting it beneath a flat surface converts a $100 tool into something closer to a small factory. Skills kit arrives complete. A 10-amp fixed base router already matched to the table, so the mounting plate puzzle is solved before it starts. The fence adjusts for dust collection and bit clearance, and height changes happen from above, which keeps you off the floor mid-project. Feed the wood across the bit and profiles, dados, and edge treatments. Repeat identically, pass after pass. Serious shop capability without needing a serious shop. Bark peeling off a log in long, clean ribbons is one of the most satisfying things you'll watch all week, and this attachment is what makes it happen. It bolts onto a standard chainsaw in place of the bar, converting the saw into a dedicated debarking head. Rather than chewing into the timber, the shaped cutter skims just beneath the bark and lifts it away in strips, leaving the wood underneath smooth and completely undamaged. Log cabins, fence posts, rustic furniture, live edge slabs. Every one of them starts here. Work that once took a draw knife and an entire weekend now takes minutes. Cracked plastic used to mean buying a whole new part because glue on a stressed bumper is a temporary lie. This hot stapler tells the truth instead. It heats a small metal staple until it glows, then presses it down across the crack so it sinks into the softened plastic. And once everything cools, that staple sits locked inside the material like rebar buried in concrete. Bumpers, kayaks, water tanks, motorcycle fairings, toys, tool housings, all repairable, all stronger than any adhesive would manage. Different staple shapes handle corners, curves, and long straight splits. Broken plastic stops being disposable. Jaws that clamp a branch before the chain ever touches it. That's the entire idea, and it's brilliant. BLACK+DECKER's Alligator Lopper behaves like giant scissors with a chainsaw hiding inside. Squeeze the handles, steel jaws grab and hold the limb completely still, and a 4.5 amp chain cuts straight through the middle in seconds. Nothing rolls, pinches, or drops onto your foot. Branches up to 4 inches thick vanish one bite at a time, and metal guards keep your hands clear of everything sharp. It owns the exact gap between limbs, too fat for loppers and too small for a real chainsaw. Struggling to cut a perfectly square hole in a brick wall? Every saw you own turns in circles, which means every hole ends up rounded at the corners. Arbortech's all-saw abandons spinning. 2 blades move back and forth against each other, so nothing gets thrown, dust drops sharply, and the cut stops dead at the corner of your line. Plunge into brick, block, or stone, and it stops exactly where you tell it. Masons, plumbers, and electricians rely on it because it's the only saw that leaves a clean rectangle. Every corner comes out sharp, every brick stays whole, and the dust cloud never arrives. Fire near a fuel line, a wiring loom, or fresh paint is a serious problem, which is why the smartest way to heat a Seesii bolt involves no fire whatsoever. Induction heaters generate a magnetic field that makes the metal itself produce heat from the inside out within seconds. The bolt glows red, the paint 2 inches away doesn't. Rust bonds break, threads let go, and the fastener that spent an hour refusing to move finally turns. Exhaust studs, suspension bolts, bearings, ball joints, and Seesii nuts on a rusted chassis. Mechanics call it magic, and after 30 tools, this is still the one that shouldn't be possible. Enjoy the weekend you just got back. Tell me which one you're adding to your cart first. Drop a like if something caught you off guard, and I'll catch you next time.